Welcome back, Mando.
Oh, greetings, Bucketheads. Mevar Tegar. Welcome to our 287th predictably unpredictable episode of Mandovision. I'm your host, Nargai Tom, and thank you so much for checking out this small, independent Star Wars podcast. We're so glad you're here. Make sure you're hitting us up on the socials. We're at Mando_Vision on Twitter and Instagram. You can find us over on the Blue Sky. We're trying that out. It's just Mandovision. Email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com, and make sure you're liking, subscribing, following, and sharing the show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. Bucketheads, we are here to close out Season 1 of our Star Wars Rebels rewatch, and what a delight it has been. I have very much enjoyed going back through this first season. I've stated before on the podcast, this is my first time rewatching these episodes since they originally aired. So while a lot of it's familiar, there are many, many details I have forgotten. First and foremost being, I could have sworn this season 1 finale ended with Vader more involved in the final confrontation. I was mistaken. As I watched through it, and I was like, I don't think Vader showed up in this episode. And, I mean, he does, but it's sort of like bookended at the very, very end of the show to kind of tease season 2 of the show. So, yeah, got that one wrong in the old memory banks. But, hey, that's what happens sometimes, and it is what it is. But otherwise, it's a strong finale. I'm really excited to talk to you guys about it. There are some nits to pick because, well, this episode is written by Simon Kinberg, who, as well as helping to create this show, has now since been announced as getting to take the helm and have his own Star Wars trilogy, and it's exciting news. But we here at Mandovision, we like to, well, we want to be honest. We want to have open analysis and critique and be prepared, I suppose, is maybe a good way to look at it. Because I very much enjoy the work that Simon Kinberg does, but on the whole. But there are some causes for some concern. Some concern. I think a lot of times if you wanted to criticize his work, he will maybe sacrifice plot sometimes for grandeur, entertainment value, if you will, and that's okay. For the cinemas, I get it. I understand sometimes you want more of the spectacle. You want more sizzle. But this episode is really strong in a lot of ways. But you have to overlook some things, and we'll talk about those in a little bit more detail. But I did feel like it was worth kind of paying a little bit more attention to the way he structures this episode. Not that it's really indicative of anything other than the fact that Kinberg's a Hollywood guy, but he's also a Star Wars guy. He's obviously a Star Wars fan. He's helped create a really great Star Wars show. And so us just having a little bit of a better insight into his storytelling methods, I think will help prepare us for the type of Star Wars story that he wants to tell us if and when his trilogy ever comes to fruition. So let's go ahead, though. Let's get the episode particulars out of the way so that we can dive into the episode. And to do that, we will get these particulars of the episode out of the way right now. This is Star Wars Rebels, Season 1, Episode 14, Fire Across the Galaxy. Original air date March 2nd, 2015. As we stated before, written by Simon Kinberg, directed by Dave Filoni. Never heard of the guy. All right, our primary cast for this week's episode: Taylor Gray is Ezra Bridger, Vanessa Marshall is Harrison Dula, Freddie Prinze Jr. as Kanan Jarrus, Tia Sakar as Sabine Wren, Steve Blum as Zeb Orielos, Dave Filoni as Chopper, David Oliuelo as Agent Callus, Phil Lamar returns as Bail Organa, D. Bradley Baker is Ephraim Bridger, Ashley Eckstein, Fulcrum, and Ahsoka Tano. What? Stephen Stanton is Grand Moff Tarkin, Kath Soucie is Mira Bridger, Peter McNichol is Sibo, who has a very small voice moment in the episode. Sibo's not actually in it. And Jason Isaacs is, of course, the Inquisitor. And we mark the end of Inquisitoring with this Inquisitor, but that leaves room for more down the road. Our plot for this season 1 finale: the crew has to go through many obstacles to save Kanan from the Inquisitor. And indeed they do, my friends. We're going to talk a little bit about all of that on the other side. But you know what that means. It's time. Strap on your buckets. Let's go.
Get out of here. We'll hold them off.
You're going to have to relocate the covert.
This is the way.
This is the way.
We start off back on Lothal at the Imperial base, where, if you recall from the little shorts that they did to introduce us to the characters, which are available on Disney Plus if you want to watch the show through that format, go to the Sabine episode. I forget the name of the episode, but it's the Sabine one. And again, they're all 4 minutes long, so it's not going to take up a lot of your time. But in it, Sabine is at the TIE Fighter hangar base, right? And she's antagonizing 2 stormtroopers and spray painting and vandalizing TIE Fighters in the process. Well, these are the same 2 stormtroopers that she antagonized the first time around. And she seems to know that right from the bat, because she asks if they missed her, and then they start shooting at her, and they miss her, and she comments on that. But they also refer to her as the artist, because she vandalized the TIE Fighters parked there the first time around. So a fun little callback to that animated short that introduced us to Sabine the first time around. But Sabine in this part is just a distraction, as Zeb and Ezra go to steal a transport, an Imperial transport, for their rescue mission to Mustafar, to get Kanan from the clutches of Moff Tarkin and the Inquisitor. So we don't spend a lot of time on Lothal. We get that Imperial transport, and we are in orbit, we are in hyperspace, and we are going to Mustafar. Meanwhile, back on Tarkin's Star Destroyer, the Inquisitor continues to interrogate, and to inquire is perhaps more in line with his title, with Kanan Jarrus for more information on other rebel cells that exist out there in the galaxy that are attempting to destabilize the First Galactic Empire. And Kanan doesn't know anything, and that's very much by design. They talk a little bit more about that later in this episode, but we all know this already. Kanan's not in the loop. He is intentionally in the dark, and he likes it that way for this very moment, so that he can't reveal what he doesn't know. And since he doesn't know anything about any other rebel cells, there's nothing for him to share. This frustrates the Inquisitor, but the Inquisitor still has methods of making Kanan not feel good about being captured. And one of those is making Kanan remember the moment Order 66 happened. And his master, Kanan's master, Jedi Master Depa Billaba, being mowed down by her own troops. And the last word she said to Kanan, a.k.a. Caleb Dune, run, and how it haunts him to this day. And the Inquisitor, he runs with that. He runs with it and just, pokes and pokes and pokes at Kanan. Like, do your friends know you're a coward? Do other people at large know that you are a spineless, gutless, yellow-bellied, yellow-livered? He doesn't use those words. But coward. And coward is a word that hits hard, especially for a person like Kanan, who, again, has run, because those were the last words of his Jedi Master, who wanted to see him live. So I think while we know he shouldn't feel shame about these things, it's something that has a lot of conflict in Kanan's heart. So the Inquisitor's sort of cutting through Kanan to get to the sort of that emotional core of him. But as far as things go, that's kind of the end of it all, right? Like the Inquisitor never really gets any more information. He speculated with Tarkin that maybe this guy just doesn't know anything. And it was at this point in the episode that I had to pick my first nit of this particular episode, because we are aware that they are in orbit above Mustafar. Last week, they set up Mustafar, where Jedi go to die. Why are we just hanging out in orbit above Mustafar? Is Tarkin really that thirsty to get the W over Vader? Does he want to be the one to break Kanan? Does it really matter all that much? It's never really specified. I just know that we're over Mustafar, but we're not on Mustafar. Vader's not involved. Is Vader away? Is the planet on lockdown when Vader goes out and it doesn't leave the remote for anyone else to open the place up? I don't know. It's one of those first little nits that I found that I was like, I don't understand why we're just hanging out in orbit above Mustafar instead of being on Mustafar, being in Vader's castle. The only thing I could think of was that this, being on a Star Destroyer, is much more has a lot more possibilities for our rebel heroes to break Kanan out. You go into Vader's fortress, and there's a whole different set of things that have to happen for them to be able to infiltrate, for them to gain access to Mustafar. My brain decided that it was just too complicated if they were in Vader's castle, if they were actually on Mustafar. Being in orbit, being on a Star Destroyer, these are things that we've seen over the years. Like, you can gain entry and access via some fairly convoluted methods sometimes, but you can. So I think for the plot's sake, they kept it kind of simple. And that kind of bums me out a little bit because, again, they really teased Mustafar as being this place where Kanan was going to be in immortal peril. And in peril. We'll go with that one. So, yeah, my first nitpick was right there. Like, why are we just hanging out above Mustafar? It makes for a great backdrop. It looks real pretty, especially when that Star Destroyer starts crashing into it. But, yeah, I didn't understand why we were just hanging out there waiting for something else to happen. Another big component of this episode is the TIE fighter that Zeb and Ezra stole many, many episodes ago into Season 1, which I was pretty sure my recall was correct, that they did not, in fact, destroy after Hera and Kanan told them to do so. So, of course, it comes in handy for their infiltration here of the Empire, of this network of Star Destroyers above Mustafar. But, as was the reason why Ezra was late to Kanan's training several episodes ago, he was with Sabine. And Sabine was painting said TIE fighter a multitude of colors that do not match with the Imperial color scheme of cold and miserable. No. This was actually very bright and vibrant. And it's actually leads to some fairly humorous interactions here because, again, it's like, yeah, you're going up against the Empire. Like, they're going to scan the ship. They're not going to look at it until it's way too late once it actually enters the hangar. So it does sort of still work for their plan, which is to fire off a series of EMP devices to render the Star Destroyer inactive. And that sounds like a solid plan, right? But when it happens, the Inquisitor's with Kanan, who says, when it goes off, he says, they're here. How predictable. And, of course, because, this is what they've been anticipating, right? But everyone else on the Star Destroyer seems totally taken aback by the whole situation, including Tarkin, who, again, I thought was attempting to smoke out the rebels to a certain extent, but wasn't prepared for this. Okay, sure, the EMP is pretty significant, but you'd think there'd be more people around, more troopers on the Star Destroyer. This was my another nitpick I had, is that everything seems fairly. I don't want to say easy, but I think that I would have felt the Empire would have made more preparation for the inevitable, the predictable rescue attempt of Kane and Jarrus. And it doesn't seem like they're prepared at all for it, which really sort of was like, I don't know, sort of strained credulity for me for just a little bit here. Because it basically puts Tarkin on his heels for the rest of the episode, which is not something that we're used to seeing. And it sort of threw me a little bit to see kind of Tarkin almost removed from this episode to an extent. Like there's at least 2 scenes at the end of the episode with him where he doesn't say a word, and I'm just like, seriously, this is the man that taught us to fear the Empire in A New Hope. But he's just completely off balance by these actions, and perhaps he underestimates the rebels. Perhaps he underestimates their ingenuity and determination at this point of the game. But he's completely off balance, and I find it a little frustrating. Though there is a really funny moment once the Star Destroyer. This is towards the end of the episode, very late on, as the Star Destroyer is now beyond salvaging, beyond saving, and falling to its demise on the surface of Mustafar. And his main subordinate tells him, "Sir, we must evacuate." And there's this look on Tarkin's face, and if you're an old fool like me, you can't help but think of just before the Death Star blew up, when they go to Tarkin and say, "Sir, there is a danger. Should we evacuate?" And we all know Tarkin's thoughts on evacuations then. Evacuate at our moment of triumph. Well, Tarkin apparently did not think this was a moment of triumph, because he was all too happy to get the heck off that ship. So I don't know. Again, like this might be a Kinberg thing. Like he sort of sacrifices a little bit of Tarkin's character, a little bit of that sort of malice and aggressiveness that Tarkin maybe has. So you get like sort of more of these like kind of aha moments, these sort of got you moments. And is that a good thing or a bad thing? I guess that's the question we'll get to answer more fully when we have our own Kinberg trilogy to watch and enjoy and discuss and dissect. I don't know. But the man in the heart of this episode, in the middle of this episode, is a really great sequence. Again, you have Hera and Sabine and Zeb going up against the stormtroopers, trying to get to. And Ezra. Trying to go against the stormtroopers. Ezra breaks away, starts going through the ducts, gets to Kanan very easily. Again, you think there'd be some guards around, a little bit more protect our asset kind of thing here. Doesn't get to him very easily, or gets to him very, very easily. No struggle, no resistance, basically. But you get a nice moment of Ezra and Kanan reuniting, and them attempting to make their way back to the rest of the group. They can't. They have to go another way. And who do they run into? The Inquisitor, who is waiting. He seems to have known. And again, we have the classic Star Wars battle in a giant empty engineering compartment with lots of machinery and catwalks and gangways and all these things around. And yes, of course, it's classic Star Wars. But it's awesome. It's a really great sequence. I love Kanan taking Ezra's lightsaber and then doing something that Ezra had never thought of, which was interspersing lightsaber, dueling with blasts from the phaser, the blaster component of the saber hills. Awesome! It's so great. It's so good. And then when Ezra uses the Force to get Kanan's lightsaber, and they team up against the Inquisitor, doing the classic Jedi Padawan versus one person, that 2-on-1 that I never have been able to wrap my head around as a fair fight. But that's a topic for a different day. It's a really great sequence. The Inquisitor sends Ezra tumbling off the edge of one of the gangways. Of course, not to his death, but Kanan doesn't know that at first. And again, that moment of Kanan's hardening resolve, as he's like, now I have nothing left to fear, and he gets into it with the Inquisitor, and it's great. It's a really good sequence, and ultimately, he gets the advantage over the Inquisitor, splits his lightsabers, sends him falling down. The Inquisitor hanging off one of the gangways, the catwalk. And saying there are worse things to fear than death. And he lets himself go, and he falls into the exploding hyperdrive reactor that his lightsabers kicked off, by the way. And yeah, it's a really great action sequence. Puts a real nice cap on this episode. And now our heroes, they just have to focus on the escape. So Hera and Zeb and Sabine, they got to get they got to get out of there. Ezra, Kanan, they got to get out of there. Chopper, in the meantime, has made a long-distance phone call, recognizing all the trouble that his friends are in. That there's no way they're getting out of this without a little help. So he's made the call to Fulcrum. And as they make their escape, Sabine and Hera and Zeb on the repainted stolen TIE fighter from earlier in season 1, and now Kanan and Ezra on the Inquisitor's TIE fighter, which Ezra has that very, very dark line of, he won't be needing it anymore. Dark humor. I love it. But where's Chopper? Chopper's gone. Chopper had to leave, I guess, to do whatever he needed to do. So they're on their own for a little bit here until the dramatic arrival of not just Chopper, but the familiar visage of several Rebel blockade runners and the Ghost, of course. So our heroes are able to make their escape. Tarkin, dumbfounded, nothing to say, as our heroes peel away, as his former Star Destroyer crashes to the surface of Mustafar. Again, beautiful imagery. Beautiful imagery. And I should mention, the Kevin Kiner score, immaculate, in the incorporation of a lot of the John Williams music that we know from the original trilogy in the last handful of episodes of this season 1. Spot on. Great stuff. Super, super amazing. Love all of it. But we get to the big moment, the big reveal. What's going on? Who's finding the Ghost? Oh, wait, here's Chopper with a hologram from Bail Organa. Rebel cells. That's who these guys are. In some Ralph McQuarrie concept art from the OG trilogy. But who's coming down the gangway? Who was flying the Ghost? Fulcrum. Hey, Fulcrum. Oh, wait, what? Ahsoka Tano. Spoilers. And yeah, Ahsoka laying it out there for us. Hey, there's other Rebel cells out there in the galaxy. We weren't supposed to meet, but the plans have changed. Things are happening. And we're about to see the formation of the Rebel Alliance. Now, I want to go back, because again, we're to this big moment here where these Rebel cells are now coming into sort of contact with each other. You know, that they're being organized to work together for the first time, you know, very early on. And I want to go back to the beginning of the episode, as our heroes are on Lothal, and they're stealing that Imperial cruiser that they need for this deception. And they take off, and we see the dust rising, and it shows up. It takes the shape of Sabine's, what is that, like a Firebird? I can't remember exactly. Well, that will then morph into the symbol of the rebellion. So we're hitting it pretty hard here that the beginnings of the Rebel Alliance are happening right here. You know, these individual cells operating independently are about to start becoming more cohesive. Now, it'll be fun to contextualize this with what's coming in Season 2 of Star Wars Andor. And you know, I'm looking for an opportunity to tie anything I can into Season 2 of Andor. But again, we're talking about the early nascent stages of the rebellion, and I'm excited about that. Again, this episode, it has quirks. There's some weird things in it, but at the very, very end, where we bookend things, and it gets us hyped for Season 2. Again, we see that Ahsoka's in the mix. She's back. This is the end of Chapter 1 for Ezra Bridger. Again, we're building all these things. But the Empire's not done. The Empire's not going away. So we cut back to Lothal. Another Imperial ship coming in. Tarkin debarking from this ship. Talking to Callus. And now there's a new rebellion deterrent in play. And that is when we hear the mechanical breathing of Darth Vader. So Vader shows up, walks into the camera, full on head, the big Ralph McQuarrie inspired visage of Vader, and it's glorious. And this caps off a really excellent first season of the show, which, again, I don't recall thinking this season was all that enjoyable the first time around. But going back, seeing the beats, seeing how these characters begin to take shape, how their family dynamic begins to form and the bonds connect them all together. Again, we still don't know much about Hera or Zeb or Sabine. We know a little bit about Kanan, but most of our broad strokes come about through Ezra. But we see the bonding, again, this family unit forming, this cobbled together family of 2 parent-like figures and 3 sibling-like figures coming together and forming a unit. So Rebel Cell, Rebel Family. And it's a very strong season in that regard because you start to get those connections. Those are going to get deeper, I can only imagine, in Season 2, now with Vader as a looming threat. And I'm very excited to dive into that with you. But we will be taking a pause on our Star Wars Rebels rewatch to make room for Skeleton Crew on our menus. I do not recall how many episodes Skeleton Crew is off the top of my head, but we're going to be back here next week to talk about the first 2 episodes that are dropping on December 3rd. I'm sure you guys already have it highlighted on your calendars because that's the thing that people still do in 2024, highlighting calendars that hang on your wall with a picture of a cat that says, "Hang in there, kitty," as it's falling off a tree. Okay, maybe not. But anyways, we'll be back here next week. I don't know what day just yet. It depends. I suspect that Disney's going to do what Disney's been doing, which when they mean Wednesday, December 3rd, what they mean is Wednesday night, like 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock West Coast time, which will make for me to have some awkward recording sessions with you guys for these first handful of episodes. But we're going to do our best. We're going to do our darndest. All right, my friends? So stick with us. Hope you enjoyed the rewatch of Season 1 of Rebels. I hope you're looking forward to our watch party? That doesn't sound right. But our watches and reviews and innermost thoughts on Season 1 of Star Wars Skeleton Crew, dropping December 3rd. Cannot wait. In the meantime, for our American listeners, it is the week of Thanksgiving. I hope everyone out there has an amazing and safe Thanksgiving. If you're traveling, be mindful of everywhere you're at. If you're on the roads, if you're at the airport, please be safe. Please make sure others are being safe. Get to and from your destinations with minimal frustration. And of course, please, 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 if you're drinking, do not drive. That is all I can say about that. If you are abroad, please enjoy another regular Thursday in your lives. If you do celebrate Thanksgiving across the oceans, by all means, again, you also have a happy Thanksgiving, friends. Buckethead Nation, have a happy Thanksgiving. Otherwise, have a great day, everybody. We'll be back next week to talk Skeleton Crew. Get ready. Yeah, that's it. I was going to talk a little bit more about the Inquisitor, but I don't want to. We'll bring him up later down the road. He's fine. You guys go. Have a great one. The Buckethead Nation. This is the Mandovision Podcast. I am your host, Nargai Tom. Thank you for your continued support of this podcast. We wouldn't be here without you guys taking the time to download, stream, and share the show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. You reach out to us on the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Mando_Vision. Hit us up. We're on Blue Sky now. We're trying out that platform, seeing if we like it. We're just Mandovision. We're just Mandovision there. Email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Otherwise, I've been very exuberant. I hope I'm not talking too fast. If you had to slow down the podcast, that would be a first, but let me know. Otherwise, go out there, be great Star Wars fans, take care of each other, and we'll be back to talk to you guys in December. Can you believe that? My God, the end of the year is right around the corner. Right around the corner. All right, let's get out of here. Bucketheads, remember, this podcast can only end one way. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way. You expect me to search the galaxy for the home of this creature and deliver it to a race of enemy sorcerers?
This is the way.